What's up? What's up? What's up, everybody? This is Damon Speaks coming to you with episode 5, I think, of the Damon Speaks show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Woo! We had a week, didn't we? I know that I'm feeling good, but last Tuesday night, let me tell you, I was going through it. I really was, because I was having flashbacks of 2016. But praise be to the Most High that we're in a much better place, and we still have a ways to go. There's some things that need to happen, but I tell you, I'm feeling so much better. It's been a pleasure to bring you this mental health series. Tonight, we have a mental health professional that lives in New York City, that is licensed in the state of New York. I can't wait to bring him on. But before I do that, I just want to go through a few thoughts for the week. This week is self-care. I know that it can be difficult to take care of yourself. I know that some of us were raised in communities and churches and societies where we were taught to always sacrifice ourselves for the better good, for us to sacrifice ourselves so that everyone else can be happy. That's great. And that's noble. However, it can be problematic because you can develop this sense of self that is not the best. You develop this low sense of self-esteem, like you're not worthy. You shouldn't ask for what you want. It's not good to have what you want, but that's totally a lie. You're a good person. You deserve to have good things. You deserve to be happy. So this week, the thought is to take care of yourself. What does that look like? Sometimes that looks like not answering the phone. Sometimes that looks like not answering that text. Sometimes that looks like not going onto social media. Sometimes that may look like being selfish. That's another thing. People think that being selfish is a bad thing, but I'm starting to believe that being selfish in the sense that you're giving to yourself first and foremost before you're giving to others is a great thing. Well, like I said, tonight I have a fantastic guest. I'm so happy to have him on the show. I'm so happy that he said yes. I'd like to introduce everyone to Ryan Grace. What's
Hi,
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Come on, Ryan. Keep on skin.
I'm trying to get there, thank you. I had to get this lighting together,
Yeah.
Okay. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm feeling a lot better.
Yeah.
Whew. A lot of people have been talking about just breathing better. It's like I didn't know that for the last 4 years I was kind of like,
Weren't we all just tight, intense,
intense.
every day?
And there's still a little bit of that. There's still a little residue because of the current administration and their reticence to move on and to declare. What's going on? Hey, Ned. Thank you so much for tuning in. Anyway, tell the audience a little bit about you. Who are you? Where you're from? What you do?
Oh, I'm so not used to this. Usually I'm the one that's asking to tell me that. No, but of course, my name is Ryan. I am originally from Hillside, New Jersey, by way of Atlanta. I moved to Atlanta when I was 13. And yeah, I got my, went to undergrad at Kennesaw State University. I did a small year in law school at Syracuse.
Woo-hoo.
Then I was like, okay. Then I was like, no, it's not for me. And so then I took a year off in between, and then I went to grad school at Fordham University and got my master's in mental health counseling. And I graduated in 2015, and I've been working ever since.
Word.
Yes.
When you were younger, did you have any idea that this is where you would be living, what you would be doing?
Absolutely not. I had no idea where I would be living. I think I started wanting to live in New York probably around 13 or so. I had never been to New York. I had no idea what it was about. But then I did visit one time with my family, and the big buildings and the lights. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to live here. I have to. And as far as what I wanted to do, I definitely thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I remember being in school and I drew a picture of me. I was such a kid. I drew the world and people holding hands around the world. And on the corner or something like that was me in a little suit. And I was like, oh, I'm the best lawyer ever. I'm gonna unite the whole world, something like that, something ridiculous. And so I definitely grew up wanting to be an attorney. which is why I eventually went to law school.
Mm.
But luckily, I had a mentor in undergrad who was like, I don't think law is for you, but try it. And when that doesn't work out, you have a place in this field. And yeah, and had it not been for her, after law school, I probably wouldn't have known what to do. Because I really just didn't understand. But like being reminded of her words, I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe that's where it was at. Maybe that's what I actually do need to be doing, because I want to help people. I want to see them grow. And law just isn't gonna do it for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Hey, Robert. Hey, Vaughn. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. So this mentor saw something in you. Did you guys have conversations about counseling? Did you ask her lots of questions about what it was like to be a counselor? How do you think she was like, you know what, this might be for you?
Honestly, I never really, that's such a good question, because I never really asked her like what it was that she saw that I clearly didn't see in myself. I just know that I was in one of her classes, and I guess like I've always been a great writer. And I know that she had always acknowledged that about me. And one day she just said, hey, I want you to be part of my research team. And ever since then, I think that was my second semester in undergrad. And ever since then, she had been my go-to person. And she, at the end of it, when I was graduating, she was like, this is it for you. Like, this is the field that you need to be in. Now, granted, she still was upset with me because I was like, well, I'm going to go for, if anything, I'll do a master's, but not a PhD. And she was like, no, you need to be a doctor. And we're still working on that one day.
Okay.
Just being in the field, I'm like, yeah, this was the best decision I could have ever made for myself.
Fantastic. I am so happy you're here, because I think that the work that all therapists do is extremely important. But I think when it comes to people of color in the queer community, we have a certain set of issues that other people may not understand. And some of us are looking for a Black queer therapist. And I've been looking sometimes for myself, or my friends have been looking, they're like, I can't find anybody. They're all full. What is it like for you as a Black queer therapist to be in this field?
It's really interesting. I think it's interesting, especially like now, because I'm noticing how much people are actually trying to break through the stigma of getting therapy and allowing themselves to be vulnerable enough to say, I need therapy, right? Like, I need to get some support. But then that turns into, now I need someone who looks just like me. And and the field is just full of people that don't look like us. I remember being in grad school, and I was one of a handful of black people in a class full of white people, especially white females. And that just let me know right there, like, where I was going to be in this field. It's like, we're rare. We're not easy to find, especially being Black and queer. And so sometimes I feel a bit overwhelmed, but also like, well, what else can I do? Because I want to help so much, and I want to be that person for a lot of people, but I can't be that person for everybody, right? And I can't always point them in the direction to another person that looks like me or looks like them, because we're hard to find. And it's like, just as hard as it is for you to find, it's hard for me to find them.
What?
Right? Because like, I would love to have like a cohort of people that I can just say, here's the go-to person, here's who else you can go to. But honestly, I can't say that I have that. But I do know that like, I'm never above helping somebody find a way. So I can always direct them to certain like avenues or places where they can look, and hopefully they can find somebody that looks like them or fits what they're needing. Right.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think that as a Black queer person, that there are a certain set of circumstances. Maybe, our families didn't accept us. For me, I was raised in a very fundamentalist Christian household, and in a lot of ways that saved me from some things.
Mhm.
But it also created a situation where I felt like I needed to be two people. I was the church boy, but I was also the gay boy that really wanted to explore and really wanted to be himself, and that felt like he was in chains. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about certain situations and how people that may be listening may want to deal with that. And the first one I want to ask you about is coming out. I feel like sometimes there's this pressure to come out, especially when it comes to the Black queer community.
Mhm.
We don't want to be labeled down low brothers, or some people say that bisexuality actually doesn't exist. Like, you gay. If you do one thing with a man, you gay.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone that feels pressure to come out, that maybe doesn't want to, or just doesn't feel comfortable? They're not there yet.
Mhm. Take it, like, do it on your own time, if you even want to, if you ever do it, right? There are no. I tell my clients this all the time when they come in with like rules and like things that they feel like they should do. There are no rules to how you need to live your life, right? Like, there are laws and things like in society that we have, but when it comes to like what makes you feel comfortable about the way that you live your life and you express yourself, there are no rules. Are you comfortable? Are you happy? Are you at peace? Right? And if you're all of those things, if you can say comfortably, like, yes, I'm comfortable, yes, I'm happy, yes, I'm at peace, then live.
That's it.
That's it. Whatever somebody else thinks about you and the way you're living your life is none of their business. Right? You have to be okay with where you are. And if you decide to tell somebody, if you decide to come out, then great for you.
Mm.
Right? That's okay. And also make sure somebody that is supportive of you, or is deserving of access to that part of you,
Mhm.
because not everybody is.
Mm.
All right. And when it comes to bisexuality, I mean, I can't really say much else other than like that does exist. Right? Sexuality is on a spectrum. So like I can't say that my world exists while I'm also denying your world.
Mhm.
So it all exists. Right. Like, how I'm gonna do that?
Listen, people are ridiculous.
People are ridiculous. I mean, the last week, the last couple of months, the last election have shown us people are ridiculous. People want to live in their world and make rules for how you live life, but then want to break all the rules so that it can benefit them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, and none of it makes sense. We have to really just let people live their lives. And if we can do that, then we can focus on how we live our lives. And then our lives will improve significantly.
Come on.
Okay? Mind your business is what I like to say. Mind your business and live your life. You'll be happy. I promise.
Promise?
I promise. If you mind your business and live your life, you'll be happy.
Tell me, is it healthy for someone to kind of cut people out of their lives? Like, let's say they did come out to a mother, a father, a cousin, and they're not very supportive. Is it healthy to be like, I'm not dealing with you. You can't be in my life until you can love me and accept me for who I am. I don't have it for you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You're speaking about boundaries.
Oh, come on.
And like I like to say, everybody can get it. Everybody can get these boundaries. Okay? If I'm giving you access to a part of my life that is very personal and deep and meaningful to me, and you tell me that it's wrong, or you can't accept it, or you don't approve, then I'm going to set up these boundaries, and you don't have to see that part of me. You don't have to have access to me. And that is okay. Because I'm doing more damage to myself if I allow you access to me, and with that access, with that privilege, you hurt me or cause me harm.
It's a privilege.
It's a privilege.
It's not a right.
It's not a right. You, mama, daddy, friend, sister, brother, cousin, it's not a right. It is a privilege.
Come on, Tiberius. Yes, you can get these boundaries.
Absolutely. Yes. So yeah, I think boundaries are extremely important, extremely healthy, because they just teach people how to treat you. They teach people how to love you. They teach people how to show up in your life, and they teach people what they can and cannot do. especially parents, because sometimes parents like to think that, oh, I birthed you, I raised you, so like I have access to everything. No, you don't.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
No, it's not. It's not easy.
But it's necessary.
Absolutely. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get doing it, the happier you'll be, the better you'll feel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? Because you're showing yourself, by creating boundaries, you're showing yourself that I love me.
Mm.
I love me enough to protect myself.
That's
I
it.
love me enough to show up for myself and to advocate for myself.
That's it.
So yeah, it's very important.
I used to think that giving away pieces of myself to make everyone else happy, mom, dad, siblings, cousin, someone walking down the street, was going to make them like me or make them even love me. But what I found was that I lost myself for everybody else. But the moment that I was able, just in an incremental small way, to set a boundary, then I knew how far I was willing to go. And then I could play within all this space, within my boundary.
Absolutely.
And I didn't go outside of it. And I was a lot happier. And my relationship started to work. Not fall apart. I thought if I put a stake in the ground and say, you may not cross here, then they would walk away. That just made me like them more and not resent them. Because when you don't have the resentment,
absolutely,
out of control.
That's it. Yeah. And I think the important thing about boundaries is that when you, hey Key, when you set boundaries, you get to know who's really there for you. You get to know who's really and genuinely in your corner, right? Because you're setting these boundaries and you're telling someone, no, you can't do that. And so they have an option. They're either going to say, oh, okay, cool, I respect that. Right? Or they'll be like, no, I don't like that. Okay, well, you can go. Right?
And we're going to be okay.
And we're going to be okay. Because guess what? I've been doing life without you before. I can do life without you again. Same for you. You've been doing life without me before. You can do life without me again. And we're going to be okay. But if you really want me around, as difficult as these boundaries may be, you'll accept it and you'll respect it. And then our relationship can grow because of it. Because if I can show, I'm showing up for myself, which means that I can show up even better in our relationship. And that's really, that's it. That's it. And I think that's what people don't get. Like, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay. You got to do for you. And we're not taught that all the time. We're taught to like give and give and give for others. But it's okay to say, no, I can't give everything. Because if I give everything, what do I have left for me? Nothing. And if I don't have anything for me, I don't have anything for you. And now you're mad at me because I don't have anything for you. I'm mad at you because you keep asking and I don't have. I'm mad at me because I let you keep asking, knowing I don't have. And so we're just mad. And now our relationship is failing, right? And so it's like, give back to yourself. Set those boundaries. People will be okay.
I promise.
I promise.
So it sounds like in order to set boundaries, you have to come from a place of self-love. And I know that there are people out there, especially in the Black queer community or the BIPOC queer community, that struggle with self-worth and love. How do we start to cultivate that when our parents may have told us you're going to hell, or when our parents may have told us you ain't shit, or whatever, or who you are is a lie. Who you are is a lie. How can we start to move toward self-love, acceptance, self-esteem?
That is tough, right? I think everybody out there wants like the answer for that, and there is no answer, just because everybody's experience and lived experience is so different. But I think a lot of that is understanding where it started. And so it started in your childhood, right? You weren't validated, you weren't appreciated, you weren't loved, you were told that who you was wrong, and none of that is true. And so understanding that, where did those words come from? They weren't your own. You weren't born with those words, right? You weren't born believing that you were undeserving. You weren't born believing that who you were was not to be validated, right? Your parents may have told you that. The news may have told you that. Social media, if you had it, I don't know, may have told you that. A friend may have told you that. But whatever it was someone else said that to you.
It came from outside, not
It
in.
came from outside, not inside, right? And likely it came from a place of fear and a place of trauma, right? And that's not ours to carry. And so, like, unlearning all of those things, unlearning all of those negative thoughts is really, really tough. But also looking at your parents and realizing they did and said what they thought they were supposed to do and say.
Come on, get into it.
Right. Because someone along the lines may have told them something similar, right? Or told them that this is how you live life. This is what life is supposed to look like. And so they did and said what they thought they were supposed to. Not to say that that gives them a pass, right? But it's just to say you are a human being doing what you knew how to do. And I'm going to give that to you. That is yours to own, right? And I'm not going to carry that anymore. And so then unlearning all of that and then learning how to love yourself and appreciate yourself, it's work. It's work. It's about finding your community too. It's about finding people who are Black and queer and free and loving.
Free.
Okay. And loving on themselves and able to love on you. And I think that's really important. Like finding community support, because that's so important to just like the Black community, but also like the Black queer community as well. It's like finding that unit, because we're not people who are individualistic. We like to to be in groups. We like to know that we have people with us, right? And so finding that is really important. Is a really important part of finding yourself and loving yourself, because it's like looking in a mirror. If my good friend can love themselves, I can love myself too, because they understand me. They look like me. They walk like me. They talk like me. And that's beautiful. And if they're beautiful, then I must be beautiful too.
Huh?
Okay? Yes, if they're beautiful,
I can be free too.
I can be free too. Okay?
Let's get into community. I'm very much interested in this. Sometimes, first, let me say I've experienced nothing like the Black queer community. When I was in high school, previously in elementary school and middle school, I had been bullied relentlessly. I mean, relentlessly. And that has its own set of things that affected my life in their way. But when I got to high school, I met a group of gay people that were like, come here. I love you. Come here. Let's hang out. They saw in me what I wasn't willing to tell everybody else. And we just became this really tight-knit, close family. Like, you my sister, you my brother, you my brista. Like, it was great. But there have been times when I've gone to a new city, when I've gone to a new function, a new bar, where I feel all these bad vibes. I feel like everybody's kind of stuck up. If you try to talk to somebody, they look at you like, why are you talking? What's that play there? What's that about? What's the cattiness about? What's all that? What is it? What's happening?
It's ego. It's ego. And when I say ego, I'm speaking in terms of like, it is the thing that protects us, that serves to protect us, right? And so if you come from a place where you were not accepted, you were not appreciated, you were talked down to, you were bullied, all of that. If you received all of that, at like your body, your mind, your brain, it's a magical place. And it says, okay, we need to protect ourselves. So when we see somebody that looks like competition, when we see somebody that looks like, they're going to take away from us or something, right? That ego shoots up. And now it's like, oh, who is that? They're living free and they're looking happy and they're doing all of that. But it's like, wait, we're mad at them for living.
Come
we're
on.
mad at them for being.
Come on.
And so let's look at ourselves, right?
It's real.
Am I able to be? Am I able to live? Like, am I really like upset at their existence, or the fact that they have something that I don't have, which may look like freedom, right? Which may look like the ability to just love themselves and show up in a space and just be. And sometimes that's what it is. I mean, I know I've gone to a lot of spaces where I'm like, oh, who is that? And I'm a therapist. But I'm also real. I'm also a human, and so sometimes I show up in a spot. I'm like, oh, he think he's cute, and like this little butch queen, is out there just doing it, and I'm like, hold on, that's my own ego, that's my own stuff
Right.
coming up,
Right.
telling me that I feel like that's my competition, or I feel like they're about to take the spotlight or something, and you gotta let it go,
Mm,
right?
mm,
You got to let it go. You have to do that internal work and have that internal dialogue with yourself about what is it? What's happening?
mm,
Because they're not doing anything.
mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
what does that remind me of?
Yeah, yeah, they're just living their lives.
Right.
I mean, listen, I know that I've been in spaces where I've wanted to talk to someone and I didn't. And then I come up with this whole thing about what they're thinking about me and they don't like me, all because they may have looked at me some type of way. I don't really know what they're thinking, but that stuff that I'm projecting onto them is
Mhm.
really in me. That's how
Right.
I'm really feeling about me. But I've had so many experiences. I understand why I do that because I've had so many traumatic experiences
Absolutely.
where I've gone
We
up to
all,
somebody and they've been
we, we all come from a space of trauma. I actually, like, when we really think about it, we all come from a space of trauma, especially living as Black queer people, Black queer men, Black queer women, Black queer non-binaries. Like, we all come from a space of trauma. We've all felt some impact, right? But I think people think of trauma and they think like it has to be like a literal, like, physical abuse, emotional abuse, like something like that they can point to as like traumatic.
Mhm.
And that's not always the case. Sometimes the trauma is just the fact that, like, your mom said something to you when you were 5 and that just stuck with you, and it hurt, and it changed the way that you saw the world,
Mm,
right? And it's like that was a traumatic moment that may not be like this big grand thing that a lot of people think is trauma, but it was traumatic.
mm,
It's simply about how your nervous system and how your brain responded to it,
mm,
right? And it stuck with you, and the alarms are still ringing.
mhm,
And so when it pops up again in your adult life, the alarms go off and you're
mhm,
triggered again.
mhm,
And
mhm,
so the ego pops up. The ego wants to protect you.
mhm.
And all those things that you do, all those coping skills that you do to protect yourself, to keep yourself safe, comes up. And sometimes that looks like having an attitude.
Mm.
Sometimes that looks like
Caddy.
cattiness. Absolutely.
Thank you, Carrie. I love you.
Yeah.
You know, oh,
I love these little comments coming in. I love y'all.
I feel that. I think that trauma sometimes gets into our bones, it gets into our blood, it gets into our
Mhm,
DNA. I can hear a song, I can smell something, or I can think about something that will take me to the exact day, the
mhm,
exact place, what I was wearing, what they said, how I felt. Trauma
mhm.
is in there.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the reasons why therapy is so important.
It is. It really is. And it helps you to recognize that.
Hmm.
And I always say to my clients, like, the first step in therapy really is just like the awareness. The first step in like making progress and growing is like the awareness, right? So like understanding what is happening when it's happening, just being aware of it, not changing it, not doing anything about it, not trying to force something new to happen, just being aware, right? And so being aware that you were triggered and your response was negative.
That's it. I'm not
That's
trying to
it.
fix it, not
Mm-mm,
saying I shouldn't be feeling this way.
mm-mm.
Simply the awareness.
Just being aware, right? Because when you're aware, then you can start to make something shift, right? That's when you can start to unlearn and undo.
Hmm.
And admitting it, yes, admitting it, admitting it to yourself that, oh wow, this is something that is an issue for me. This is something that, like you said, lives in my bones, right? And now I'm aware of it because I can recognize it. I'm not pretending like it doesn't exist. I'm not sweeping it under the rug. I'm looking at it and
Hmm.
I'm seeing it.
Hmm. Listen, we use a lot of things when we're not aware, trying to cover up because we don't want to look at it. We don't want to think
Mhm,
about it. Like some
mhm,
people use drugs, some people use sex. I use food
mhm.
to not deal with it. But the awareness, kind of lessens that a little bit. Once you're aware, you're like, all right, I finally accept
Mm-hmm.
that this
Mm-hmm.
is what's going on.
Right.
And yeah, I don't have to act out in these ways.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so then when you become aware, don't judge yourself.
Woo! What?
Okay? When you become aware, don't judge yourself. Okay?
It's hard. Hard.
It is. It's very hard. Like people want to be like, oh, I shouldn't be doing that. Oh, like that's bad. How about we first just let it be? Just let it be what it is. Right? Because you're doing it for a reason. Right? You're doing it to maintain. You're doing it to keep yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And as much as like it's a coping skill,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't just like remove a coping skill without a coping skill without having something in place. And yes, Tiberius, be kind to yourself, right? Have self-compassion. And so when you see that negative thing that you're doing or the thing that you deem negative, just be, that's okay. Right? That's okay. It's okay that, it's okay that I overeat when I get emotional. It's okay for now that I do that. It's okay for now.
Because listen, when you're heavy, overweight, you're uncomfortable in your body, and you're like, oh damn, I just ate that cheeseburger. Like I know what, like all these compounding things. First, you did something that you thought wasn't right for your body. Then you're mad about that. And then you're mad that you did it again. Then you're jealous of it. Like it's all pressed down.
Right. Right.
But if it could be okay, perhaps we could sweep that away a little bit.
Absolutely. If it can be okay, then we can be okay with making the changes that we want to make. Right. Because then we can start to think about, well, what other ways can I actually do this, get the same result? Right. So like, what is this thing that I'm doing? What is it doing for me? How is it soothing me? Right? And so for now, it's okay. This thing can soothe me because I don't have anything else in place. Right. And if I knew better, I would have been doing better.
Huh? Come on, Maya.
Right. And so this thing is okay for now. But now that I recognize it, now I'm free to think about other ways that I can do that in a more healthy manner. Because I'm not so busy trying to deny myself. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. And then we start to learn new ways. We start to get new coping skills. Or we start to open up to the idea of going to therapy.
Tell me, I like to think about therapy as something that allows you to build a toolbox. Mm-hmm. What are some of the tools that come along with therapy when we're having an episode, when we're dealing with PTSD or food addiction or any number of things? What are some of the things that can be in our toolbox that we can use in any given situation?
Mm-hmm. First thing always, I think, is breathing. I always tell people this, and I feel like people get tired of hearing about breathing. And
listen, it's real.
Right. It's so real. And it's so important because breathing is something that you have control over. Right. And so especially when it comes to like anxiety or PTSD or things of that nature, like you feel like you're losing control. And so the first thing you can always do for yourself to regulate your nervous system and to get yourself like grounded and back centered is just stop and breathe. If you can do, I call it square breathing. Right? So you breathe in for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds. No, breathe in 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds. And literally think of it as a square.
Simple.
And you do that about 3 to 5 times and get your nervous system, get your nervous system back regulated. Hey, JR.
Hey, JR.
Back regulated and, get yourself grounded again. Also, when it comes to like depression and anxiety and PTSD, affirmations, right? Mm-hmm. Having things in your back pocket that you can say to yourself, right? Like just allowing yourself to feel whatever it is that you're feeling. I'm allowing this moment to happen, right? Mm-hmm. I'm allowing this moment to pass through me. I'm allowing these feelings to pass through me. And just having those words of affirmation so that you can validate yourself, validate your experience. And again, you don't want to deny it, right? And so, right.
Yeah, let it be.
You don't want to deny it. You just want to let it be. Which is why I will also say I just saw this recently, where it was a post about positive vibes only, and
Talk about it.
and and the post was definitely saying, it was calling out like, that's actually a really toxic thing, because you are denying yourself the full human experience, which means that you're denying yourself so much growth, because you're like, oh, it can only be positive. If it can only be positive, then you're only living half a life. Because there's a lot of negative that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of negative feelings that we have.
And negative creates gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, how will we know that a sunshiny day is beautiful if we never experience the rain?
Exactly.
Done.
Exactly. So I'm just like, it's all vibes only. It's all vibes only. Nah, I ain't gonna say all vibes matter, but but it is. But yes, it's like you gotta allow yourself to have all of those moments. Right? What else can you do? Spend time with yourself every morning, right? Because I think that sets the tone for the day. If you wake up and you open up your email because you got to work, and that email pisses you off, don't worry about it, Key. You can redeem yourself. And you wake up and you got an email from work and you didn't spend no time with yourself, and that email has pissed you off, baby, your day is gonna be a little bit rough, probably, right? But if you spend time with yourself and meditate, or just go wash your face, brush your teeth, and in that moment you're just like, just look at yourself and love on yourself for 5 minutes, and then go to work. That's it. 5 minutes. Simple.
Mm-hmm. I'd say, for me, never underestimate the power of something very simple as far as self-care is concerned. I don't have a lot of money, but sometimes just going to buy a new toothpaste, new deodorant, a pair of underwear that I like, or looking at myself in the mirror in the morning and saying, I love you. I really, really love you. Even if I don't believe it, because sometimes it's hard, but it does make a difference. Or, for example, I do these TikTok videos every few mornings and I say, you're the shit. People think I'd be talking to them, and I do.
You're right.
I really be talking to Damon. I really am talking to myself. And one day I realized, because I did a recording a couple weeks ago and I felt like, oh God, this is shit and I didn't do a good job, blah, 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 blah. It came like that because I had been practicing that I am the shit. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm the shit.
I'm the shit. Hello.
And after that, it went much better.
Right.
Affirmations.
Absolutely.
Self-care.
And I think that's really important, right? Like, one, you talked about self-care, and even if you don't have a lot of money, like, self-care is not about how much you can spend, right? It's about just how much you can pour back into yourself, and whatever that looks like for you, right? In whatever way you need to do so. And then you talk about affirmations and how sometimes you don't believe it, but you still do it anyway, right? And I think people try to do affirmations and they get caught up in that feeling of, well, I don't believe it. So, like, why do I keep saying it? Why am I going to keep saying it? But if we think about it, the negative things that we were told all our lives, we didn't start off believing them right away. They were reinforced. We were told over and over and over again, right? Until one day we believed it, right?
That's good. That's good, Angela.
And so the same way someone told you those negative things and they had to reinforce it over and over and over again until you started believing it, it's the same thing with positive affirmations. You say it to yourself until you start to believe it, right? Because it's true. You the shit. And that's just that.
Talk to me about pouring from an empty cup.
How can you?
You can't. Just for someone that keeps trying to pour from an empty cup. You talked earlier when we were talking a little bit about an exercise that someone could do, and I love it. It's so practical.
So, okay, yes. Pouring from an empty cup, it's impossible, right? And because nothing's going to come out of it. And it's just going to leave you frustrated. It's going to leave the other person frustrated. And it's going to leave you, like, depleted. So I was telling you about an exercise that I feel like I probably did not actually create, but until I find otherwise, I'm going to say that I created this on my own. But so I get an actual cup and sit it somewhere that you can always see it, and think about the things that you do throughout the week. And every time you do something for yourself, write it down on a little piece of paper, rip it up, ball it up, crumble it up, whatever, or don't, and put it in your cup. Right. So you wake up in the morning, you wash your face, you brush your teeth, write that down, put it in your cup. You took a shower, write that down, put it in your cup.
Mm.
Right. You said no to somebody, write that down, put it in your cup. At the end of the week, look at your cup and see how full it is. Or look at your cup and see how empty it is.
Mm.
Right? And what this exercise does is it allows you to see just how much you do for yourself. Because sometimes we don't really think about those small things as ways of self-care, but it really is. And also, it helps you see what you're not doing for yourself and where you may need to improve or where you may want to do more for yourself. Right? So if at the end of the week your cup is empty,
You know,
have an empty cup.
I think that's brilliant because it's so visual.
Mm-hmm.
And it's tangible. You can see it. You can feel these pieces of paper.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just reinforcing if you had a great week, yes, I'm moving in the right direction. And if not, then you're like, oh, this is why I feel like shit.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's big. Like this is why I feel like shit.
Mm-hmm.
Because I ain't got nothing. I haven't done anything for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I did everything for everybody else, and I forgot about me.
Yeah.
And I'm the most important relationship.
Mm-hmm. Most
important relationship.
We're gonna get to relationships in a minute, but we have a and please, everybody, feel free to put your questions in the comments. We'll do our best to answer them. Carrie Bell says, "Can forgiveness be learned or taught, or does only time bring it?"
I have an interesting relationship with forgiveness. I have an interesting relationship, and I think with the idea of forgiveness, and I think a lot of queer individuals do as well, because we've been hurt so much.
In the bones, I'm telling you, it's in the
DNA, in the bones. Listen, it's in there. And can it be learned or taught? I think that's tough because I'm not someone who believes that forgiveness is always necessary.
Oof, woo! Talk about it. I want to hear about this.
Yeah, I think sometimes we can grow and move on from things and people and incidents and situations without society's definition of forgiveness, right? Like I don't have to go back and say, "Ooh, I forgive you. Thank you for that apology. I forgive you." I just need to know that I've settled with where I'm at. I've come to terms with where I'm at and what has happened. And I've learned what I needed to learn from that situation and I've moved on. And I don't need to grant you access to anything. I don't need to give you this forgiveness because you don't necessarily deserve it. It's not your right for me to come back to you, the person who has harmed me, and say, I forgive you for harming me. No, you hurt me. You said you rectify that on your own. Right? You rectify that. Now that's not in all situations, that is in some situations. Because sometimes it is something that you need to do for yourself and for that relationship to say, you know what? I forgive you and I can move on and we can move forward.
Yeah.
But it's not always necessary.
I was just going to ask you, because I've identified with the idea for so long that forgiveness is not necessarily for the other person, but it's for me so that I can get that off my back. But hearing you say that forgiveness is not always necessary helps me realize that forgiveness piece of saying it's okay what you did to me, so I forgive you so that I can feel better, is not always necessary.
Mm-hmm.
I can be okay with that.
Okay. Right? And I'm not gonna lie to your face and tell you that it's okay.
Because I'm still carrying the weight. I'm still carrying that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then I will have betrayed myself.
Boom.
Not tell you the truth.
Boom. Self-betrayal. It's real. And it's like it's self-betrayal, and I think somebody down there said something about rejection, right?
Mm.
Like, listen, I got these feelings and you hurt me. And you got to sit with that. I'm going to move on. I'm not going to reject my own feelings. I'm not going to betray myself and all that I'm feeling for the sake of you so that you can feel better. I'm going to deal with my emotions. I'm going to deal with what I'm feeling. I'm going to sit in that. I'm going to sit in the fact that perhaps I don't want to say I allowed this person to come in and hurt me, but sometimes that is also the case, because sometimes we see the red flags and we have allowed this individual access to us that wasn't supposed to be there. And we sit with that. And then we resolve those feelings. We don't sweep it under the rug. We look directly at it. And then we move on.
Mm-hmm.
And we can know, like, inside, internally, I'm okay with that situation. I've settled that situation. I've resolved it. And I didn't need to give that person more access to me to manipulate the situation or to make me feel like anything. Like, you can move on. Can you say it in your heart? Absolutely. If you want to. Can you say it in your heart? Can't you say it in your heart? Yes, you can. If you want to. If it's necessary for you.
Carrie says, I want to forgive the person who kidnapped me and left me with permanent brain damage for me, because I need to lose the anger and hatred from my heart. I don't want to carry that weight anymore. That's real.
That is real. That is very real. And that sounds like a very difficult situation to navigate. And for someone in that situation, Carrie, I don't know your whole story, right? But like, for you, maybe forgiveness looks different. Right? And so understanding that you can also create your own definition of forgiveness.
What works for you?
What works for you? Absolutely.
A lot of times we're receiving these messages from society or from close friends and that's always coming from their perspective.
Mm-hmm.
What life have they lived? What experiences have they had?
Mm-hmm.
That's what works for them, but it's okay. Are you saying it's okay for us to develop our own definitions and do what's right for us?
Yes, absolutely. Why not? Right? My definition of forgiveness may look very different from yours. And that's okay. Right? My definition of love may look very different from yours. And that's okay. We have to do what works for us, because when we try to fit into somebody else's box or somebody else's definitions or somebody else's worldview, we lose sight of us and what we need. And then we are no longer in alignment with who we are.
Huh? What? Did you say alignment?
Alignment.
Not disjointed, but in alignment. This is who I am. This is what I need. This is what I want.
Absolutely.
And getting back into alignment can look like taking 5 minutes in the morning.
Absolutely.
And before you get that phone, before you hit the road, get out of bed, being with
yourself.
Let's talk about love and dating and the
not doing it.
What are we doing? What are we doing? I've heard so many things about how difficult it is, especially in a city like New York, because people are always looking at the next best thing. Let me talk about. Let's ask the professional this. Let's ask.
Oh Lord,
what can we be doing to prepare ourselves, to make ourselves ready for what we really want? Say we do want to have a monogamous relationship, or say we just want to have a partner, a long-term partner. What can we be doing? Like, some people will say it, I want a long-term partner, but then their actions won't align with what they say they want.
I mean, first, I think it starts with just being honest with yourself, right? That's it. But also, I think it's also realizing, especially as Black queer folks, like, we didn't necessarily have people to look towards, relationships to look towards growing up. So like we didn't really know. We don't really know. A lot of us still don't know like what love looks like, what a relationship looks like or could look like, right? And so we're just out here fumbling around, hoping that something falls into place, hoping that something makes sense for us. And for a lot of people, that's okay. Fumble around if you need to, if you want to, right? Um, but also being honest with yourself about does monogamy work for you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is that really what you want and need? And sometimes it doesn't. Yes, we're drawing the map, and sometimes and we're trying to draw the map and find our way and make it all make sense. And you know, none of it makes sense for us right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't always have to, but I do think like being able to communicate honestly with yourself and with the other person or people that you're dealing with about like what you're capable of, what your understanding of relationships is, what your understanding of love is, what you're needing, what you're wanting, what works for you, what doesn't. Like all of those things are really important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to say, I don't want monogamy.
Are you inside my head right now?
It's okay to say that.
I was just having a conversation with someone earlier who really opened my mind to this because there's a lot of judgment that goes on in our community and all communities about people that are in open relationships or that are polyamorous. Oh, that's not a real relationship. Like all of that, but that's okay.
It's okay.
To be whatever works for you.
What works for you, right? But it's okay to want monogamy, right? And we have to search for it and we have to look for it, but we also like have to understand that our relationship with ourselves first and foremost is most important. And until we're in alignment with that, like it's gonna be real difficult to be in something genuinely and honestly with someone else.
Mm.
Right? Because like you said, a lot of people say, oh yeah, I want monogamy, but then their actions say something different. And it's like, so you need to go have a conversation with yourself first
Mm-hmm.
before you come and have a conversation with me.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
Because you can't lie to yourself and be honest to me. Like I don't understand. It doesn't make sense
Mm-hmm.
if you're like to live. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just reading the comments down here.
Yeah, read along.
Right. Why is everybody so worried about what you do? Do you?
Do you, boo?
But then find people that want to, if in terms of relationships, find people that want to do what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And if someone is not doing what it is that you're doing or wanting to do, it is okay to be like, ooh, this is not going to work for me, but I wish you the best.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can be friends, we can be cool or not.
Mm-hmm. Or not. That's
Or
okay.
not.
It's all okay.
It's all okay. Right?
We don't have to beat ourselves up, feel bad.
Mm-mm.
I'm going to tell you a little something about being honest with yourself. Like I was in a relationship. Can I call it that? I was dating someone.
You know, he was out there doing something. It was somebody.
Oh, I was dating someone and we would go days without speaking and I was going crazy inside, but when I would see him and when I would talk to him, I would flip the script and act like everything was okay because I was trying to be what I thought he wanted me to be. And he asked me one day pointedly because I was like, are you supposed to be my boyfriend, but I'm really not hearing from you a lot? And he was like, just let me know right now, like if that doesn't work for you. And I backpedaled like so fast, like no.
Mhm.
Because I poured myself into him. I was so invested in him. I was always compromising for him. So that made it so much easier for him to just withdraw and to walk away. And you know what?
Mm.
I've learned
Mm-hmm.
that was probably the best thing that could happen. That heartbreak that I went through from that breakup
Mm-hmm.
and from not being honest with myself taught me how to be today.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Sometimes those things are our biggest life teachers.
Mm.
Right? And we learn so much from those moments.
Mm.
Right? And something that you were saying also reminded me of something that I hear a lot about. Yes, that's also one of my favorite things to say. You can't lie to yourself and be honest to me.
Woo!
Because, baby, it don't work like that.
A mug. Put that on your cup.
Okay? Put that on your cup. But also what you said, it reminded me of something I hear a lot. And this isn't necessarily for everybody, but I do think a lot of Black queer individuals can may be able to relate to it. Because when it comes to love and relationships, a lot of times we're trying to fix the ending of a story, right? And so we're trying to retell a story that we didn't get to experience, right? So a lot of times it's a love that we wanted growing up but never actually received. And so we're trying to make that ending.
Shut up.
No, because I'm gonna say this. But no, seriously, it's like, there was a person or a presence in your life. Again, this is not for everybody. This is not everybody's story. But I do know that in my work, I've seen it come up a lot, where there was a person in your life, a parent, an adult, a friend, whomever it was, a love interest, whatever, and it didn't work out, right? But that was such an impactful and important relationship for you, and you end up repeating this pattern over and over and over again, right? Trying to rectify, trying to change the outcome of that story, and it's not going to change. Right? It's not going to change because that person is going to keep showing up in a different person every time, but they're going to keep showing up. And again, it starts with awareness, right? Understanding and being aware of your pattern, understanding and being aware of the type of people that you attract and what is attracting you to them, right? And what is attracting them to you, and working through that. But yeah, I see that retelling and that those patterns pop up a lot. It's like I keep running into the same man who says that he wants this, but then he don't want that, and yada yada, and it's the same thing over and over and over again.
But who's the same? Who's the one that's living that? Who's choosing that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And something that I've learned is that sometimes we are so familiar and comfortable with trauma and pain that's what we choose every time, instead of something that's unknown, something that's new and could be better. Like, no, I'm gonna choose the fuckboy. Over and over and over and over.
Absolutely. We know how to navigate the fuckboy. We know how to work with that, right? When it comes to like trauma and pain and all of that and hurt and those patterns that we know are not good for us, we know how to navigate those spaces. We know how to survive in that. That is also the ego telling us, like, we know how to condition, right? We're conditioned to survive in those spaces. What is scary, what is terrifying, is the idea of getting out of those patterns and doing something different. That is terrifying, right? Or when it comes to dating, right? The fuckboy is exciting and we know how to navigate that, and it makes sense for us and we enjoy it.
Out of here.
We enjoy it, but that other person who's going to treat us right is so boring. Clearly, they're not for us. They can't possibly be for us. They want to treat us right. Okay?
Please tell us. We need to know, because we want to be married. We want to have partners. We want to ride off into the sunset, even though it's not sometimes like that. But how do we make a different choice? If you're literally not attracted to the person that's good for you, therapy.
I was going to say, go to therapy. Go to therapy. Okay? Familiar and healthy are two different things. A lot of times what is familiar is not healthy for us.
Come on, Tiberius.
Right? And what is healthy is not familiar, because that may not have been the space that we grew up in. And that's why it's important to go to therapy.
I was reading this book called Relationships for Dummies, and the woman said, sometimes the relationship that's the best for you, if that's not what you're used to, is kind of like drinking wine for the first time. It's kind of like drinking beer or learning how to appreciate beer. You have to keep tasting it, you have to keep choosing it, and then your taste will acclimate to what's good for you.
Choose healthy when it comes to relationships, right? You see the red signs. You see the red flags.
Yeah, come on.
You see them. He said the same thing that the last man said. He did the same thing that the last man did. You're just expecting a different outcome, because maybe if you do it this way instead of what you did last time, it'll be different. It's gonna be the same. So choose that other person who is doing right by you. that's a little bit boring.
You are a mental health professional. I'm going to ask you this because I've talked to a lot of people about this. What do you do when you are not physically attracted to someone, but they seem to be a good choice or someone that you may want to like give a try? Like, because I've heard it both ways. Someone is like, if I'm not attracted, I just can't. Other people are like, look, I wasn't attracted. This wasn't my type, but we started going out and I fell in love.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance that?
I think that can be that can be a tricky topic, right? Because I do feel like you, one, be open to all things, all possibilities, right? Because you never know what's for you until you've tried it.
Mm-hmm.
And when it comes to physical attraction and all of that, I think it's also like having a conversation with yourself about what is it that is standing in the way, right? Like, is there some underlying self worth issues coming up for you, where like, does this person represent something that didn't feel good for you? Or because I mean, when it comes to like fat shaming and body shaming, all that, I think that's a lot of like internal stuff that you have to deal with and work through, right? And I say, like I said, you don't know until you try. So I think if somebody has all the other things that you want, and you just physically, you're like, oh well, maybe they're a little bit overweight. They have everything else that you want.
Mm.
What's the issue?
Mm. What about when that ties into them feeling like they're settling? Like, oh, he's 10 pounds or he's 20, 50 pounds overweight. Like, I just don't want to settle. Like, he's a nice guy, but it's not what I want.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not what you want.
Mm.
Right?
And it's okay. You can be okay with that.
You can be okay with it. Sometimes it's not what you want. Right? But I mean, I think it at least involves like just investigating your internal dialogue. Right? At least like do that work about what it is that's coming up for you. Right? Because it could just be that it isn't what you want, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I'm not for everybody, and everybody isn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have to like be aware of my biases. I also have to be aware of my blind spots. I also have to be aware of what comes up for me when I say that about someone.
The awareness.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I love you, Carrie. Thank you for tuning in. Okay, this is the last thing I'm gonna ask you about love and relationships because we have a whole. You're gonna have to come back and talk about this. Let me talk to you about this new age of texting and dating. Like, I have had so many problems, and I know I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, should I text first? I want to be pursued. I don't want to be the pursuer. He's supposed to be pursuing me. Why isn't he texting me? Is it okay to text? Am I texting too much? Am I gonna get in like hamster wheel?
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts around that? How can we bring some peace into that space?
Mm-hmm.
And because I've heard something that I've not done, to be completely honest, which is if you feel like texting, if you feel like saying something, do it and don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't seem to do that.
Mm-hmm. I recently heard that too. Well, not recently, but at one point in time, I think it really shifted like my whole thought behind that. It was very similar to it. Basically, it said it's never too early to say something, right? Or to ask a question, or to it's never too early to say something or do something, right? Never. So if I have a question, I can ask that question, but I may not like the answer.
That's the part. If I like the answer, then I'm like, no.
Right. I may not like the answer, but I have to be okay with that if I'm going to ask the question. Right. But I also don't think it's ever too soon to text. Right. I don't think if I wake up in the morning, I want to text you, good morning, I'm going to text you. Right. Like, why is that a problem?
Mm-hmm.
And if that becomes a problem, then we need to have a conversation about what we're doing. And like, are we really, compatible? I feel like if you want to double text, well, Now, are there limits? Could there be limits? Maybe there are limits, right? Like, you don't want to be out here stalking a man, stalking a person, right? You don't want to be out here stalking anybody. You don't want to be out here sending 10, 12 texts back to back talking about what you're doing, where you at. Like, you want to, because then you need to also look back inwards and figure out what's going on with you. But if you want to double text, why not? Go ahead. What?
It came to me. Come on. So I believe in like vibration and energy.
Mm-hmm.
And when I am not allowing myself to be who I am, my energy is this.
Oh, yes.
How is someone supposed to get to know me and fall in love with me if I'm always like this? You have to do this, and you have to have standards.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Have boundaries, but it doesn't allow a free flowing. I'm gonna get to know you. I'm gonna vibe with you. If I'm always like, he didn't text me, I'm not texting him back. I texted him 5 hours ago. What's taking so like that? All blocks,
right? Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, like if you're only showing up partially in that relationship because you got these walls up because they didn't text you back right away or they didn't text you back at all day, like you're not allowing the genuine energy in the relationship to flow as naturally as it could. But also be okay with having these conversations and communicating with the person that you're dealing with. Like, hey, this was an issue for me. Right? Like I didn't hear
never too early.
Hmm?
It's never too early.
Never too early. If we're talking or whatever, and it's like I text you this morning and I didn't hear from you all day long, right? Not saying that is wrong and you can't do that, but I want to express to you the importance of communication to me, so that we can move forward in a way that is going to work, or so that you can understand that this is what I need, and you get to decide whether or not you can meet that need. Right? Because what you don't want is to be in something with someone for months, years, and then be like, oh, well, that didn't work for me. And you're never able to truly be yourself. So ask those questions early if you can.
If they think you're crazy, or if they don't want to deal with that, then then.
Guess what? Then that just means that y'all may not be for each other. And guess what? That's okay.
Okay. And you may have saved yourself a little bit of heartache, all that stuff. My cousin said, and I know this couple.
I wasn't the Ames physical type when I first pursuing her, but she gave me a try and ended up falling for me. Been married 15 years now. Sometimes you just got to give it a try. That's it. That's it. Sometimes the gift that we need isn't wrapped up in the gift wrapping that we thought it would be.
But the fear of, for me personally, I'm going to break their heart. I'm not going to fall in love. I'm going to waste their time. Like all of that gets in the way of just being open-minded and giving it a try.
That's why communication is so key to relationships. Right? Like having conversations and being honest and allowing yourself to be vulnerable in these relationships is really important. And that's hard. That's hard for us. Right? We're not taught how to be vulnerable. We're not always taught how to communicate. We're not taught what that looks like. We're not taught how to say, hey, this is what I need. This is what I want. These are my worries. These are my concerns. These are my fears. Right? And I'm not saying it to hurt you or to harm you. I'm saying it because I want us to grow. I want us to enjoy each other. Right? And it's also okay to say, I don't know what this will turn into, but I'm open to trying. Right? And I'm open to learning. And that's important. Don't let people make assumptions. Yes. It's so attractive.
But scary as hell.
It is. And again, that's because it's not familiar.
Wow.
We're not used to it.
Wow. We have been on for an hour and 10 minutes, which feels...
I honestly feel like... I feel like I go on forever and ever.
I just want to say, if you have received anything from this conversation, perhaps you're already in therapy. If you're not, this is why. You're listening to a mental health professional. Maybe you can go to therapy and get this same thing where someone is focused on you in that amount of time. You know what I'm saying? Ryan, what can people be doing? Like, can they reach out to you? Are you accepting clients? Where can we find you? Give us a lowdown, because we need this. We need access. We need to get ourselves in there.
No, it's so important. We didn't necessarily speak on this before, but I do want to say, like, when it comes to the Black queer community or just like the LGBT youth and community in general, like, while we don't necessarily like see major differences in mental health diagnoses such as like depression and anxiety, what we do know is that a lot of us are not getting therapy. A lot of us don't have access to therapy, right? And it's like at a very disproportionate rate. And that is because a lot of us can't afford it, don't know how to get it, don't know who to go to, don't know how to speak about it, don't necessarily feel supported, and so many of the other barriers that our communities just face. But there are always ways to get help. And especially like with the invention of like teletherapy and having therapy on your phone. So anyway, I say all that to say I have a website, ryangracetherapy.com. You can find my page and my information there. I believe I'm on Psychology Today. I'm probably not. I think I took myself off of Psychology Today. But there's that. My Instagram is Ryan LMHC. You have that. Am I accepting new clients? Yes and no. So I do out of pocket. I don't currently take insurance. I'm working on that. Eventually, sometime in the future, I'll be accepting insurance, but currently I'm out of pocket. And so I say yes and I say no because it depends on really like what the need of the person is. If they come to me and they're like, listen, I'm trying to find somebody, I can't find anybody at all. I can't find anybody at all. And like, I really just need help. Then I have a heart and I love to help people. So I will take it. So I really think it's based on like our conversations. But also how to find therapists. Psychology Today, it lets you navigate and talk and like kind of pinpoint the things that you want in a therapist. That's always a good resource. If you have insurance, don't be afraid to call your insurance companies and ask for a list of referrals. They will give them to you. I also believe you can probably be as specific as you want with most of your insurance companies. For people who are wanting affordable access to care, I know a few places that if you reach out to me, I can kind of like help you with, but also one place that I think is really doing some great work, at least from what I know so far, is Open Path Collective. They're also out of pocket and they're really, really affordable. And so, yeah, that too. But also, if I don't work with you, I can help you find somebody. If you do reach out to me, please understand I'm only licensed in New York. I can only help people in New York. I wish I could help the world, but I really can't. So yeah.
Before we go, JR asks, can you discuss some green flags? What are you showing me something and I need to go with this? This is somebody that's good.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like some of the green flags will be someone who's, one, understanding the relationship that they have with themselves. Clearly, like, I love that, right? So how they communicate boundaries, how they communicate with you, how they show up for themselves, how they take care of themselves. I think that's a great indicator of somebody who's in alignment with themselves and is then capable of being in relationship with someone else. I also say some green flags are how they show up in their friendships, how they show up in their family relationships, if they have those, if that is something that is important to them, who their community is. I think those are some really great green flags. If somebody can communicate their boundaries with me, I think that's awesome. I think that is a wonderful thing to be
Mhm.
able to say, hey, this is something that doesn't work for me, and I just want to like make sure that we're on the same page about that.
Mm, mm, mm.
Don't leave. Don't like. We don't want to be guessing. We don't want to make assumptions. So if you can communicate clearly, that's a green flag.
And again, communication, I think, is a part of vulnerability, and vulnerability is
It's
attractive.
attractive.
It is attractive.
Absolutely.
Brian, thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been absolutely fantastic. Please come back to the show. I want to talk
Absolutely.
more with you. Thank you to everyone that's tuned in to episode 5 of the
Mhm.
Damon Speak Show. Thank you for all the love, all the support, all the shares. Come back every Monday night at 8 p.m. I will be here on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, just go ahead and tap that subscribe button. If you're on Facebook, tap the like button, share, send it out to everybody. Next week, I have a very special guest. It's a boomer, y'all. It's a baby boomer who's currently in therapy. We're going to talk about how he was raised. We're going to talk about what ideas were around therapy and mental health back in the 50s and 60s and how he's come now into today's society and as a Black man in therapy and how it's helping his life. Again, thank y'all. I
Thank
love y'all.
you.
And thank you, Ryan, again. And see you next week.